Here's the amazing thing about your brain. It's made to reprogram itself all the time. This is neuroplasticity in action. For a long time, scientists thought our brains were pretty much set after childhood. But now, with advanced brain imaging, we can literally see how our brains create new connections when we practice different thinking patterns. In this video, I'm going to explain how anxiety actually creates physical changes in your brain, and then share 3 powerful techniques you can use to reprogram your brain for calm instead of anxiety. These techniques are simple to understand, but they do take practice. So I'll also share 5 daily habits that strengthen your brain's calm circuits and weaken those anxiety pathways. And if you need more help, there's a natural solution called Anxiovita. It can provide support and calm as you work to reprogram your brain. A natural health product designed to help alleviate the symptoms of anxiety. Anxiovita comes in the form of liquid drops, making it easy to incorporate into your daily routine. You can find the link in the description below. Let's start by understanding what's actually happening in your brain when you experience anxiety. Your amygdala, which is like your brain's alarm system, becomes hyperactive when you have chronic anxiety. It's like having a smoke detector that goes off when someone's just cooking dinner. At the same time, your prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for rational thinking and decision-making, becomes less active. Researchers at Stanford University used fMRI scans to look at the brains of people with anxiety disorders. And they found that these brain areas actually showed different activation patterns compared to people without anxiety. The good news is that through neuroplasticity, we can literally change these patterns. If we want to use neuroplasticity to reduce anxiety, we need to understand 3 key principles. Number 1, we need to understand how anxiety pathways form in the brain. Every time you have an anxious thought and then respond with worry or avoidance, you're strengthening a neural pathway. Think of it like walking through a field of tall grass. The more you walk the same path, the more defined that path becomes. Number 2, we need to understand that what fires together, wires together. This is Hebb's law, a fundamental principle of neuroplasticity. When brain cells activate at the same time, they form stronger connections. So if you're feeling anxious while scrolling social media, your brain starts associating social media with anxiety. Or if you always worry when you're trying to fall asleep, your brain begins to associate your bed with anxiety. Number 3, we need to understand that creating new neural pathways requires repetition and attention. You can't just tell yourself don't be anxious and expect your brain to rewire itself. It takes consistent practice, just like learning any new skill. Imagine trying to learn to play the guitar. You wouldn't expect to be good after one practice session. The same applies to creating calm neural pathways in your brain. You need regular practice, ideally every day, and you need to pay attention while you're doing it. This focused attention accelerates the neuroplasticity process. So now let's talk about the 3 powerful techniques you can use to actually rewire your anxiety. The first technique is mindfulness meditation. Now I know you've probably heard about mindfulness before, but there's a reason neuroscientists are so excited about it. Harvard researchers found that just 8 weeks of daily mindfulness practice can actually shrink the amygdala and increase the thickness of the prefrontal cortex. That's literal physical rewiring of your brain. But here's the key, you need to practice it the right way for anxiety. When practicing mindfulness for anxiety, you're not trying to eliminate anxious thoughts. Instead, you're learning to observe them without getting caught up in them. It's like standing on the side of a highway watching cars go by, rather than jumping in and going wherever they take you. Start with just 5 minutes a day of sitting quietly and noticing your thoughts without judgment. When anxiety shows up, simply note it. There's anxiety, and return to your breath or whatever your focus is. The second technique is cognitive reframing. This is about training your brain to interpret situations in a more balanced way rather than jumping to the worst-case scenario. Our anxious brains have been wired to scan for danger and fixate on potential threats. UCLA neuroscience research shows that when we consciously practice reframing our thoughts, we can actually change how our brain processes information. How to do it. When you notice an anxious thought, write it down. Then ask yourself, what's another way to look at this situation? Or what would I tell a friend in this situation? This creates alternative neural pathways instead of strengthening that well-worn anxiety path. For example, if you think I'm going to fail this presentation, you might reframe it as, this presentation is challenging, but I've prepared well and done difficult things before. The third technique is called behavioral activation, and it's particularly powerful for neuroplasticity. This is about deliberately doing things that generate positive emotions, even when anxiety is telling you to avoid them. Research from the University of California shows that positive experiences cause your brain to release neurochemicals that actually facilitate brain rewiring. The trick is to create small, daily positive experiences, especially in situations that normally trigger anxiety. For example, if social situations make you anxious, you might set up a brief, pleasant coffee date with a supportive friend. The positive experience helps your brain form new associations with social situations. Or if you feel anxious about public speaking, you might practice giving a 1-minute speech on a topic you love in front of a supportive person. Each positive experience weakens the anxiety pathway and strengthens a new, calmer pathway in its place. Now, I understand that implementing these techniques can be challenging, especially when anxiety has been your brain's default mode for a long time. So let me break it down into 5 daily habits that make rewiring your brain more manageable. Habit number 1. Start your day with a 3-minute breathing exercise instead of checking your phone. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system and sets a calm tone for the day, disrupting the pattern of morning anxiety many people experience. Habit number 2. Practice worry scheduling by setting aside 15 minutes each day specifically for worrying. When anxious thoughts come up outside this time, gently remind your brain, "Not now, I'll think about this during worry time." This teaches your brain that you don't need to be vigilant about potential threats all day long. Habit number 3. Take anxiety-provoking activities and break them down into tiny steps. If making phone calls makes you anxious, start by scripting one call, then rehearsing it, then making a quick call to a business to ask their hours. Gradually work your way up to more challenging calls. Habit number 4. Create a calm anchor by pairing a physical gesture, like placing your hand over your heart, with a moment of calm breathing. Practice this pairing multiple times a day when you're feeling good. Eventually, your brain will associate the gesture with calmness, and you can use it to interrupt anxiety cycles when they start. Habit number 5. End each day by writing down 3 moments when you successfully managed anxiety or chose a different response than your usual anxiety pattern. This reinforces the new neural pathways you're building and helps your brain recognize progress. Remember, neuroplasticity works in both directions. Just as your brain became wired for anxiety through repeated thoughts and behaviors, it can become wired for calm through the same process. The key is consistency and patience with yourself. You're not just managing symptoms, you're literally changing the physical structure of your brain. This process of reprogram takes time, so be compassionate with yourself along the way. And if you find the journey challenging, know that you are not alone. There are tools and resources available to support you on your journey, to help you find peace and clarity amidst the storms of life. One tool is Anxiovita, a product designed to help calm the mind and ease feelings of anxiety. It is a gentle yet powerful aid for those seeking to find balance and tranquility in a world that often feels chaotic and overwhelming. Anxiovita can be a valuable support on your journey, helping you to quiet the mind, to find moments of stillness, to reconnect with the peace that lies within.